"Sarah, I need to talk to you," her father said, taking a seat next to his daughter. In reality, he was very anxious and had no idea where to start or how to lead this conversation to the most important, the crucial point. Tonight, Sarah's mother, Rebecca, passed away. It wasn't entirely unexpected. He knew it was coming. Not that he was waiting for it, as it's impossible to anticipate such a thing. Regardless of what anyone says, death always comes unexpectedly and untimely. Rebecca had been ill for a very long time. When Sarah was just 2 years old, the first signs of cancer appeared in his wife. They went through all the stages together: denial, acceptance, resignation, and the fight. For 3 long years, they fought together. They cried together, laughed together, rejoiced together, and, ultimately, they triumphed together. Yes, they defeated cancer. But, no matter how much they wished otherwise, and despite what anyone might say, if it's true cancer, real, vicious, relentless cancer, you can't conquer it. You can only suppress it, mitigate it, reduce it, but never conquer it. If someone ever claims to have completely defeated cancer, don't believe it. It's not cancer they had, it must have been a benign tumor. Cancer cannot be defeated. Until now, no one knows where it comes from and how. They won the battle, but the war was not over. This victory brought them 10 happy years, 10 long and happy years of remission. And then, the illness returned. It gathered strength, prepared to strike like a cunning enemy in the shadows, and deliver a blow with double, triple, no, even 10-fold force. There were no signs of trouble. They were supposed to go visit Sarah in the camp in the evening. It was Parents' Day. "Should we bring her home?" Rebecca suggested in the morning. "Yes, why not? She likes it there. It's not her first time at that camp. It seems she already has her own group of friends there." "What's wrong, Rebecca?" Dave became alert. "Are you feeling okay?" "Yes, everything's fine," his wife replied somewhat uncertainly and added after a pause, "I just miss her, that's all. My heart aches." Throughout the day, she seemed somewhat sluggish, as if she was listening to herself. "Rebecca, is something hurting?" Dave asked 40 times during the day. "No, it's not hurting," she replied, but without the firm assurance in her voice as she used to have when answering such questions before, with a smile or even a smirk. Now it seemed like she didn't understand what was happening to her. And in the evening, just before leaving, she suddenly fainted. Dave wanted to call an ambulance, but decided it would be faster to take her himself. With his wife in his arms, he carried her into the oncology center's reception room. Of course, they didn't go to the camp anymore. "Just don't tell her," Rebecca suddenly squeezed her husband's hand. "Let her have a few happy, carefree days." He nodded and turned away to the window so that his wife wouldn't see the tear rolling down his cheek. Pretending to reach for his mobile phone, he said, "No need for tears, Dave." "I don't want to lie in a wet grave," Rebecca told him. She guessed that her husband couldn't hold back his tears. They had lived together for too long, been through too much together. She knew him too well, every gesture, every twitch, and every habit. Rebecca fervently believed in the old superstition that if mourners cry too much for the deceased, they'll lie in a wet grave. There was an example right before her eyes. Her mother loved Rebecca's grandmother dearly. When she passed away at the relatively young age of 57, Rebecca's mother cried incessantly for several years in a row. And her grandmother's grave was constantly submerged in water. They tried everything, added gravel, installed drainage, poured in sand, all in vain. Every spring and every autumn, as soon as the snow melted or the rains began, the grave would sink into water. Then suddenly, a distant aunt from the village advised Rebecca's mother to stop tormenting herself. Enough shedding tears, it won't bring her back, she said, and told her about the superstition. Rebecca's mother composed herself and stopped crying. She remembered but refrained from shedding tears. Miraculously, her grandmother's grave seemed to turn into a desert. Now they could plant flowers without worrying they would get soaked within a week. So, 13 years ago, when Rebecca learned about her illness, she immediately told everyone not to cry too hard. But how can we not cry now, daughter? Her mother already had teary eyes. Well. As a grandma, I'm not planning to lie in a puddle. Rebecca cut in. All right. I won't, her mother said, swallowing tears. And now Dave. Look at him, crying like a woman. Rebecca thought. As if it would make it any easier for me. Tears won't help with grief. Stop shedding tears for me, his wife repeated. Well, you're not dead yet, it seems, Dave turned with a smile. I'll call Sarah now. Hello, Sarah. Sweetie, will you be terribly upset if Mom and I don't come? Rebecca heard her daughter's voice through the handset. Dave had an old phone. In those days, they didn't have noise cancellation. What happened? Is something wrong with Mom? Sarah's voice trembled and became stern and concerned. She knew her mom used to be sick, and she needed to be careful not to upset her. But she didn't delve into what and how her mom was sick. Rebecca showed her fist to Dave. No, everything's fine. Just, Dave feverishly tried to come up with something to tell his daughter. Our car broke down. I've been trying to start it for an hour, but it just won't budge. Even if we take a taxi, we still won't make it. We'll arrive during the hat discussion. Well, just poisoning the soul, Kitty. Oh, well, said Sarah. From her voice, it was immediately clear that a weight had been lifted from her heart, although she was clearly upset. Rebecca and Sarah had a very close bond. They were somehow tuned to each other, as if on the same wavelength. Remarkably, they could finish each other's sentences and sometimes communicate without words, just with a glance. Not many mothers were lucky to have such a daughter, and not many daughters were lucky with their mothers. They were true friends. Now tears were welling up in Rebecca's eyes. She lay there and thought about how Sarah would be without her, who would be her support. For some reason, she felt that this was it, she wouldn't make it. Dave, of course, would be sad, but he was still young, handsome, there was no need for him to bury himself. He would marry, he would definitely marry. And she would like him to get married, only, how would his wife treat Sarah? A stepmother is still a stepmother. Oh, she's leaving too early. Rebecca thought. Her daughter was entering such a complicated and difficult period. To be a teenager without a mother is very hard. It's easy to get lost and do foolish things. She wished she had at least a couple more years. Although, what would that change? Rebecca remembered herself at 15, at 18, there was a small difference. Well, if she had another decade, maybe she could have seen grandchildren, Rebecca thought. But it wasn't meant to be. Apparently, it wasn't meant to be. She felt that life, not drop by drop, but with such a powerful flow, almost like a mountain river, was simply slipping away from her. So, what do you say, Doctor? Dave asked hopefully. The doctor looked at Rebecca, then at Dave, and shook his head negatively. How much time do I have, Doctor? She asked. No more than a month, the doctor sighed. Can I spend this month at home? Rebecca asked. I'm afraid not. Without proper care, you won't last even a week, the doctor said. "Mom, Dad, I'm home," Sarah shouted, running straight into the living room with her backpack and, without taking it off, plopped onto the couch. "Where's Mom?" "Sarah, I need to talk to you." Dave moved closer to his daughter, ready to hug her if necessary. "Do you remember when Mom was sick when you were still little?" "Yes, what about it?" "Oh, by the way, what was she sick with?" Sarah asked. "It doesn't matter." "Sarah, the illness has come back." Dave was choosing his words carefully, but a lump formed in his throat. "And where is she?" "In the hospital?" "Which one?" "Can we still make it to her?" Sarah bombarded him with questions, not giving Dave a chance to insert a word. As if she already knew everything, understood everything. Just unknowingly delaying the moment. "Sarah, Mom passed away last night," Dave finally said. "What do you mean? How did she die?" "Dad, you're joking, right?" "This is a bad joke. I want to know where Mom is." Sarah screamed and suddenly fainted. The paramedics gave her a shock injection, saying that she would sleep until tomorrow. She has stress, shock, and all of it together. At the funeral, Sarah didn't utter a word. She just stood there, staring at everything with an unblinking gaze. Several days had passed, but there was no relief for his daughter. Dave didn't know what to do or which doctors to turn to. Sarah seemed to deflate like a balloon before his eyes. She wasn't eating, barely drinking anything. She just lay there, wasting away before his eyes. She stopped talking. Doctors said that if things continued like this, she would be admitted to a clinic for neuroses, and they would force-feed her through a tube. Only after these threats did Sarah start eating. Well, eating is an overstatement. She just opened her mouth, and Dave put food in. She closed her mouth and swallowed without chewing. However, it was enough to trigger some change. Sarah could sit, albeit briefly, and asked for a tablet, paper, and paints. She had taken a serious interest in drawing. She used to attend an art studio and had dreams of becoming an artist. Dave brought everything she needed, and Sarah started drawing. She drew almost manically, silently, slowly, for a long time. Then she would crumple the paper and throw it away, moving on to the next sheet with short breaks for sleep. During the day, she drew in silence, but at night, apparently thinking Dave was asleep and wouldn't hear, she crumpled the sheet and threw it on the floor, muttering angrily, "Why can't you turn out right?" But he wasn't asleep. He couldn't afford to sleep. He was just afraid for his daughter. One day, when Sarah was dozing, he picked up one crumpled piece of paper from the floor and looked at it. Sarah was drawing her mother. To his inexperienced eye, it was quite accurate. One might say it was even perfectly accurate. But for some reason, the artist was dissatisfied each time. Sarah seemingly wanted to draw her from memory. She just needed the negativity to come out along with the portrait, otherwise, it was hard to understand why she was doing this. For obvious reasons, Sarah didn't go to school in September. She spent a year lying in bed, still trying to recreate her mother's portrait from memory. Dave suddenly realized that it wasn't about the negativity at all. Sarah needed the process itself. She couldn't let go of her mother and accept her departure. Every time she drew Rebecca, it was as if she was with her. She could see her mother's face again. Every time Sarah drew a portrait, she returned to her in memories. To that carefree, happy life they had before. To the time when they went on hikes, rode boats, and visited the village. They were not entirely urban dwellers. More precisely, Rebecca was urban, and Dave came from the village. They visited his hometown a few times, but Rebecca didn't like it. Sarah remembered that her dad behaved, at least, strangely. whether he was looking around or constantly glancing back. He seemed to be waiting to meet someone and, at the same time, afraid to meet them. Mom seemed not to notice his behavior, but they never stayed there for very long, no more than a couple of days. But overall, Sarah liked the village. Her perception of nature, animals, the river, and the forest was very different from her mom's. Everything was new and very interesting to her. Yet the daughter loves the village at that age. Her dad proudly said, "That's because she's still little, she finds everything interesting now. But wait, she'll grow up, and she'll be just like me." Her mom replied, smiling. "Sarah, do you want to go to the village?" her dad asked one day. She shrugged and didn't say anything. "No, not for a visit, but permanently." "You used to like it there," Dave tried to persuade her. He consulted with doctors and psychologists. All of them unanimously agreed that, firstly, the girl needed a change of environment. Secondly, the pine forest surrounding the village, and nature in general, would be beneficial for Sarah, who was fading away from grief. Bathing in the river was incomparable to the pool where Dave took Sarah for hydrotherapy. However, the lion's share of responsibilities fell on Dave's shoulders. There were no helpers or nurses in the village. He had to take care of her himself, carrying her to the river and doing water exercises. Dave was experienced in caregiving. The only problem was his job, or rather, his own business. Dave was quite a wealthy businessman, a wealthy widower now, to be precise. Sarah agreed to go to the village, but with a condition: he must hire a caregiver. Sarah was already at an age where she understood perfectly well that a father should not only sit by her bedside. He should be busy with work. However, she needed assistance at least to change water, bring paints and paper. In the village, Sarah planned to continue her drawing. Dave was a wealthy widower and a businessman. He bought the largest and most luxurious house in his hometown. The biggest and the most beautiful. He spared nothing for his beloved daughter. Initially, he had the idea of buying the small house where he and Rebecca used to visit. The house where he was born and raised, where his mother and grandmother lived. In a moment of folly, in his youth, he sold that house. Rebecca didn't want to go to the village. She was a complete city person. "Why would I go there?" she would say. But then Rebecca fell ill, and there was no time for such considerations. During the periods of remission, they visited a few times. When Dave started the process of buying a house, he discovered that the house of his childhood had long been demolished. Perhaps it's for the best, Dave thought. Firstly, the house was not at all comfortable and not suitable for a paralyzed girl. And secondly, there were too many memories there, not just from childhood. Just before the move, Dave posted an advertisement looking for a caregiver. He did it the old-fashioned way, put up a notice on a post near the store and on a bulletin board near the office. He needed a local caregiver so that she wouldn't have to travel far, wouldn't be late, and wouldn't depend on transportation. Even better if she could move into the house he bought. He thought some old lady looking to earn a bit before retirement would respond. But no, apparently, the old ladies were too busy with their gardens. Dave was getting desperate and decided to hire a caregiver from the city when suddenly the phone rang. The voice was quite young. Maybe it's for the best, Dave thought. It would be more interesting with someone like Sarah, a peer, rather than a grumpy old lady. They talked and arranged a meeting. It turned out the girl had experience. She had been taking care of her sick mother for quite a while. Everything was falling into place. A young girl, about 18 or 20, showed up for the meeting. He didn't ask about her age for some reason. Turns out, she was an orphan. When she took care of her mother, she was around 10 years old. but she remembered everything very well. The thing is, my daughter is not completely ill. She became unwell after her mother's death, and now she doesn't get out of bed. It's as if life is leaving her without any visible reason, Dave explained. I know how that feels, Katie replied. I thought life was leaving me with my mother's departure. What about your father? Did he support you? Dave asked. Oh, I don't have a father and never did, Katie smiled. Well, hypothetically, he exists, of course, but I've never seen him. Mom was never married. I was practically saved by my aunt. I was lucky that she and my mom were twins. My aunt looks a lot like my mom, so it was easier for me. And now, where is your aunt? Did she also pass away? Dave inquired. No, God forbid. She's alive and well. We just live in a cottage, quite far from the village. And here is your advertisement, she said. I see, wanted to be closer to civilization, so to speak. Bored alone in the forest, I suppose? Dave smiled. No, not at all. I have a boyfriend in the village, I won't hide it. I think we'll be able to see each other more often, Katie smiled. But not at the expense of my daughter, Dave said. Oh, no. It's just work. I understand everything, the girl smiled again. There was something painfully familiar in her smile. It was remarkably similar to the smile of Dave's first love, Allison. They were young, happy, with their whole lives ahead of them. When was that? Oh, God, so long ago. So many plans for the future. He was 20, she had just turned 18. They didn't think about age or time back then. Dave went to the army, and literally 6 months later, he met Rebecca there. Everything started swirling and spinning. Dave honestly wrote to Allison that things turned out this way, and he found his love. She didn't reply, and Dave decided that the girl had long forgotten about him. Many guys would talk about how girls swear eternal love and then stop writing after a month. Dave didn't think about it, he just lived, loved, and aspired to a better life. He married Rebecca right after demobilization, and the wedding was in the city. Grandma and Mom whispered about something, looking at Rebecca, but Dave didn't think about it at all. A completely different life was beginning for him, a city, a young wife, work, prospects, and business. He quickly became almost a millionaire. Dave had a good grip and an entrepreneurial spirit, as they say. Dave introduced his daughter to Katie and, with a calm heart, immersed himself in work. The girls didn't immediately find common ground. It seemed like Sarah didn't want to let anyone into her life. She was closed and didn't want to share anything, continuing to draw portraits of her mother. The bitterness of loss refused to release the young creature. However, Katie did her job really well. There were no complaints. In addition to her, there was also a gardener, a cook, and a housekeeper in the house. Katie was hired only for Sarah. She shouldn't carry the burden of the entire house on herself. Dave was rich, very rich. He was a millionaire and could afford the luxury of having servants. The girl quickly got acquainted with all the household members and became friends with them. Only positive reviews were heard about her, except that Sarah continued to be prickly. "Why are you so prickly?" Katie asked one day. "It seems like you could physically get pricked by just approaching you." "Just don't come close, and you won't get pricked," Sarah replied, exhibiting typical teenage behavior. "What's wrong with you?" "Your dad said you're healthy from a medical standpoint. It just seems like you don't want to live." "Is it because your mom died?" Katie asked. "Just don't touch my mom," Sarah almost shouted. "No one is going to touch her. Do you constantly draw her portraits?" Katie picked up a crumpled sheet of paper and unfolded it. Beautiful. Is this your mom? Don't touch. Sarah shouted as much as she could. Put my drawings down and never touch them. You and people like you will never replace my mom. My dad won't be yours. Katie even laughed. Oh, so that's what it's about. You silly girl, decided that I want your dad? Yes, calm down, he's too old for me. I'm only a few years older than you, 3 or 4 at most. And I have a boyfriend, he's young and handsome, lives in the village, Katie said. Sarah fell silent and just looked at her caregiver sheepishly, like a little wolf pup. Deep down, she felt ashamed. Ashamed that she behaved like a little capricious girl. She was ashamed to realize that, essentially, she was such a little capricious girl. Her parents had always indulged her whims. She always had everything she could wish for. But now, her mom was gone. And no amount of money could fix that. She missed her mom so much, she desperately longed for her, and she could hardly live without her. Sarah needed the support and comfort her mother provided. Without her, the ground was slipping from under Sarah's feet, and she resented the whole world, angry at her dad for deceiving her and not picking her up from camp earlier. She was angry at herself and angry at her mom. Angry that she left without even saying goodbye. Her mom didn't wait a few hours for her from the camp. Sarah was angry at everyone, so she drew portraits of her mother. She missed her immensely. And then she crumpled them and threw them away. This was her way of punishing her mom for not being there anymore. For not having the life she used to have. For not having happiness in her life. Sarah understood that Katie was not to blame for anything. She understood that the girl didn't take her mom away from her, and she certainly didn't need her dad. It's just that this stupid phrase came out on its own. Words are not birds. Once they fly out, you can't catch them. And now Sarah suffered from this as well. She realized that she unfairly offended the girl who was practically her servant. She lay there all day, doing nothing, reveling in her grief, while people worked, while people lived. And people were happy. You know, Katie said, you're not the only one living without a mother. Many people in the world don't have moms. Some died, like yours. And for some, there simply wasn't one because she left them at the maternity ward. Do you think the world collapsed for them? But no, the sun is shining, the grass is green, even without your mom. Katie was older and already understood a lot. She decided not to pay attention to the offenses of the little teenager and spoke first, though it was a few days after that argument. Although, it couldn't even be called an argument, Sarah just exploded because of the drawing. Katie, literally, continued to reprimand Sarah. She said some harsh things, but she wasn't going to just be silent and indulge the girl's whims. Even if she got fired because of it. You have a dad, such a wonderful person, who does everything for you without you asking. And you? Do you think it's not hard for him after your mom's death? You could support him, but you literally sucked the life out of him, draining all his nerves. Look, I never had a dad. I never saw him, and that's okay. I'm alive, as you can see. And I lost my mom when I was even younger than you. However, I didn't lie down in bed and didn't go crazy. I kept on living, Katie expressed. So, you're an orphan, essentially? How did you survive that? Sarah asked. Now she felt even more ashamed of her behavior. Well, yes. I didn't have time to lounge around. In the village, you know, there are its own laws, Katie replied. And besides, I have an aunt, my mom's sister. She took me in. She looks a lot like my mom, so it was easier for me than for you. What happened to your mom? Sarah asked. I don't know exactly. She was always sick, my aunt said, from the time of my birth. Something went wrong during childbirth. I was little and didn't really understand. I just took care of her, and then she was gone, Katie replied. My mom died of cancer, Sarah said. She started crying and told Katie about how she learned about her mom's death, how she wasn't waited for from camp, and how her dad deceived her. Sarah just needed to talk and cry. The girls cried, embracing each other. Since then, they became closer friends and often talked to each other. Tell me, do you look like your mom? Sarah asked one day. I, for one, look very much like mine. I think I do too, Katie said. Tell me about your mom. I keep talking about mine all the time, Sarah requested. Strangely enough, I barely remember my mom, Katie said sadly. I don't really have much to remember. My mom was constantly sick. I only remember her being very ill in bed. She lay there, and I took care of her, just like I do with you now. Except you can talk and laugh, and my mom couldn't. Something happened to her head during childbirth. While I was very little, she could still move around a bit, but then she couldn't. She mostly slept. That's how I remember her. How sad. Forgive me again for my behavior. I couldn't have imagined that someone might have an even sadder story than mine, Sarah said. At that moment, Dave arrived in the village. The girls didn't hear him approaching the house, and they continued chatting. Dave had just climbed to the second floor and approached Sarah's room to check on his daughter and greet her. But then he heard voices and even laughter. Well, Dave thought. The girls have become friends. He decided not to interrupt them, and to avoid them hearing his footsteps, he quietly tiptoed away from the door. That's when he heard Katie talking about her mother. Dave couldn't leave. He stood behind the door eavesdropping. In fact, my aunt says that I look a lot like my mom. But here's the thing, it's a very interesting situation, Katie said, smiling. I am no less like my aunt. Everyone thinks she's my mom. Why? Sarah didn't understand. Because my mom, Allison, and my aunt, Leslie, are identical twins. They are like two peas in a pod. Maybe that's why it was a bit easier for me to cope with my mother's death. I saw her living portrait right in front of me, Katie explained. Dave, upon hearing this, nearly died on the spot. So that's why Katie and her smile seemed so familiar. Katie was Allison's daughter. Dave literally plunged into memories of his youth. Allison and Leslie, the twin girls, always amazed everyone in the village with their similarity. Many were even afraid of them. They were exactly like two peas in a pod, and only he, Dave, could see how different they were. Zoe was feisty, with character. All the rivers were knee-deep to her, and all the mountains were shoulder-high. Allison, on the other hand, was not like that. She was more feminine, softer. Noticing the difference in character over time, Dave learned to distinguish them even visually. It was love, true love at first sight. He suddenly remembered a curious incident. Either Allison herself asked her sister, or Zoe decided to play a prank. Dave didn't delve into it. In any case, once Leslie came to him for a date instead of Allison. She wore Allison's clothes, did her makeup like Allison, but Dave immediately detected the ruse from the first words. Allison wanted to test her fiancé's loyalty, as Leslie told him. The test was successful. Dave recognized the trick right away. Loving hearts are hard to deceive. And then he went to the army, and it turned out that he could have another true love. Dave did fall in love with Rebecca, otherwise he would never have left Allison. Allison remained somewhere in his youth, in his distant past. And Rebecca was here, nearby. She was different. She was entirely different, mature, bold, and decisive. In short, what happened happened. And now, Dave is standing behind the door of his daughter's room. No, that would be incorrect. He stands behind the door of his daughter's room and listens to their conversation. Neither Allison nor Rebecca is alive anymore. Fate has arranged it this way. Yet the girls sit and talk. There was no doubt. Judging by Katie's age, and she was 100% his daughter, Dave had no doubts for a minute. Just not clear why Allison didn't inform him in the army that she was expecting a child. Things would have been very different then. Maybe he would have broken up with Rebecca, or maybe he wouldn't have met her at all. Oh, women, women. Why are you so strange, incomprehensible, and unpredictable? Dave thought. I would like to visit your mother's grave, Sarah said. Then you'll have to get out of bed, Katie replied. It's not that easy. Do you think I'm lying here out of spite? I really can't move my legs, Sarah replied. Is your mom buried here in the village? Of course, where else? Katie answered. Just behind the old chapel, there's a path that leads to the alley. If you follow it, you'll definitely reach my mom's grave. It's easier and faster than going around the whole cemetery and walking down the main alley. Hearing this, Dave was no longer concerned about whether the girls would hear his footsteps or not. He shot off like a torpedo and ran to the old village cemetery. He knew exactly where it was and which chapel Katie was talking about, and which path. His mom and grandma were buried in this cemetery. In one breath, he reached the place, circled the chapel, and stepped onto the path. A few 100 meters later, there was the grave. Dates, surname, and the name Allison were written on it. How terrible it was to see this inscription. If he had known what was happening here, he would never have allowed Allison to suffer so much. He would have helped, even if Rebecca found out, she would have understood. Dave knelt before Allison's grave, crying and asking for forgiveness. He raised his hands to the heavens, with a silent question on his lips. Why didn't Allison say she was pregnant? Why? Dave spent several hours at the grave of his first love. Now he had a daughter, another daughter. Now he faced a difficult conversation with Katie and Sarah. The girls had just become friends and found common ground. How would Sarah react to the news that she had a sister? And this sister was Katie. She was a teenager, a fiery teenager. One careless word could ruin everything. Dave understood that. But at the same time, he couldn't wait. He couldn't let his elder daughter be treated like a servant in the house. He simply had to tell them everything. When Dave returned to the house and approached Sarah's room again, he slowed down a bit. He wanted to gather courage and determination while the girls continued chatting. Why are you so late, Dad? Where have you been? Sarah was delighted. Communication with Katie was clearly beneficial for her. Just yesterday, she was sad, apathetic, and depressed, but today she was ready to throw herself into her father's arms. Although they weren't talking about cheerful topics. Well, I'll go then, Katie said, getting up. See you tomorrow. She glanced at Dave, smiled slightly, and headed for the door. That smile. Her smile again, inherited from her mother. Dave thought. Well, how? How could he have been so blind before? Now he saw that Katie was indeed an exact copy of Allison. Wait! Dave shouted. Katie turned around. His heart squeezed. She was his daughter 100%, no doubt. His and Allison's. That's how life goes. Did you want something? Katie asked. Don't go, we need to talk. Dave didn't know how to choose his words. Maybe I'll wait for you downstairs? Katie suggested. No, we all need to talk together, Dave said. Katie returned to the room and sat next to Sarah. Dave looked at them and marveled. The girls were very much alike. Even though they had different mothers, there was only one father. You know, I'm your dad, he finally decided to say those words. I know, surprised Sarah said. No, not you, Dave smiled a little. He wanted to lighten the mood. It's understandable. I'm not talking about you, Sarah. Girls, turn and look at each other. Katie, I'm your dad. The girls obeyed the request and looked at each other as if turning their heads on command. Now, with both in profile to Dave, he saw an even greater resemblance between his daughters. But how can this be? A bewildered Katie asked. Just like this, Dave said. He told the love story, his love for Allison. He also told about Rebecca, everything as it was, without embellishments. The girls listened, literally with open mouths. Now, Katie, you won't be Sarah's caregiver anymore, Dave said. Are we not going to see each other anymore? Are you kicking her out? Sarah didn't understand her father. No, not at all. Now you're a full-fledged member of the family, Dave said. You can see each other as much as you want. You can move into this house. And what about my aunt? She's like a mother to me. I can't leave her, Katie replied. Is Leslie here? In the village? Asked Dave. Well, not exactly. She moved to a neighboring farm. That's where we live. I told you, remember? Katie said. Oh, yes. Sorry, my head is spinning, Dave said. Let your aunt move in too. The house is big. There's enough space for everyone. I would like to talk to her. Surprisingly, both Katie and Sarah took the news that they were sisters quite well. The next day, Dave went to the neighboring farm alone without Katie. Leslie, upon hearing the sound of Katie's arrival, came out onto the porch. Oh God, how much they resembled each other even now, when Allison was no longer alive. It was still clear that she was a different sister. Now, with neither Allison nor Rebecca in the world, Dave could afford to look at Leslie with completely different eyes. So, you came, Leslie said. As soon as Katie told me where she got a job, I understood that big changes were coming. Oh, Leslie. If only I had known how life would turn out, Dave said. And what would you have done? Life is meant to unfold the way it does, Leslie replied. They went into the house and sat at the table. Leslie poured tea. A simple house, a wooden table, simple utensils. For the first time in many years, it seemed to Dave that he had finally returned home. Returned from some long and extended journey, a journey called life. Leslie, why didn't you get married? Did you not have children? Dave suddenly asked. I was waiting for you, Leslie replied, turning sharply. It can't be, Dave said. Indeed, it can. I loved only you my whole life, from the first glance. But you only had eyes for Allison. Do you remember that date? I lied that Allison sent me. It was my idea. I just wanted to feel what she felt. I just wanted to steal a piece of her happiness, but you understood everything. You loved her, and I got to raise your child, Leslie said. And what happened to Allison? Why is she like this? Dave didn't know how to ask more specifically. She had a thrombus. It detached during childbirth. It left her disabled, and then it finished her off completely. Poor Katie, she tried to take care of her mother, Leslie said. Yes, what a strange fate. And now she takes care of her sister, Dave said. Why didn't Allison tell about the pregnancy? She wanted to, she just didn't want to do it in a letter. She went to the army to see you, came back in tears, and didn't want to explain for a long time. Only before she died did she say that she saw you at the checkpoint with someone else. That's why she didn't approach, didn't speak, and forbade us, Leslie said. It was Rebecca, I was only dating her. Fate, the villain, took both from me, Dave said. But it seems to have left me, Leslie said. Early in the morning, Katie burst into Sarah's room. Get up, sister. Stop lying around. We have a lot to do today. It seems our dad decided to get married, Katie announced from the doorway. Well, finally, it's about time. It's so annoying to watch them tiptoeing around like kids, Sarah said. And you, what, are planning to lie in bed at the wedding? Or in a wheelchair? Asked Katie. What choice do I have? Sarah didn't understand. Go to school. I'll take care of you, lazy little one. Katie laughed. At Dave and Leslie's wedding, both daughters danced with their father, and both were on their own 2 feet. It seemed that Sarah was getting better.